Greetings. I just first of all want to say I'm really excited about the opportunity to spend time with you starting September 3rd, walking through this journey of becoming a certified coach. I'm really excited also about what I've heard as your deep passions for serving and blessing other people, for your desire to use coaching principles and practices that allow you to be a transforming presence in so many ways to build on what you're already doing, and to learn these skills to find better ways to facilitate transformation in the lives of other people. And so I want to spend a few minutes with you unpacking a little bit of our Monday conversation about navigating the coaching journey. And again, want to remind you that these things that we began to surface didn't go real deep in, but this is going to be embedded in the entire process as we walk through our 23 sessions together. But I think it's important as we begin this to think that coaching is a process of navigating and co-creating this relationship with our clients. And we need to be thinking about what does that look like at the beginning, maybe even before we begin the dance or formalizing things. And what does it look like as we end that relationship well and launch them into the next chapter of the things that they're doing? So know that this will just be a brief overview. Also know that you will get a much longer version of this with more details with the slides that you can watch at your leisure at other times. Because I really wanted to focus on who you were, learn a little bit more about your stories, and we didn't cover everything on Monday. But let's talk a little bit about some of those, the key phases we talked about, which were 4 of them. There was launching, there was listening, there was, do you remember the third one? It's really learning a little bit about the client, learning the rhythms, and letting go. So let me just say a little bit about those. The launching is just really what are all the steps, the things that need to happen to make sure that when you get started, hey, you're coaching the right person. You're the right person to be coaching that individual. You've established some very specific norms that are going to help ensure a fruitful coaching conversation. And you're both excited about those next steps and spending intentional time together from that point on. So that's a little bit about the launching piece. How do we always want to talk about starting strong and ending well in a coaching relationship? And the launching is to help ensure you start strong. And then we talk a lot about the importance of listening. When you think about it, asking powerful questions is all about listening deeply to who the individual is, their gifts, their passions, their concerns. But part of this listening element also not only focuses just on that individual, but to think about what is the challenge they're seeking to address, their dreams they're seeking to fulfill. And that can't usually be done without having a little bit more about the context of their life, their work setting, their stage of life, all those things. So there's usually some listening for the sense of context, understanding a little bit more of the big picture, understanding who that individual is. And even some of that listening starts out just when we start having some conversations. What are 10 things you'd like me to know about you before we begin this coaching process? What are the things that keep you up at night? So there might be questions like that you're asking. But there is a process of them deep listening to the context of the coaching, to the client and their possibilities as well as their challenges, that will help inform some ongoing learning that will take place. And understanding that learning is embedded in this whole process. People are going to be learning by they're going to learn new things about themselves through assessments, through reflections, through some of the powerful questions. They're going to learn more about the people they interact with and their context setting. They're going to learn more about their stage of life and if they're ready for something different than maybe what they've done from the past. So a lot of this learning is learning about others, learning about yourself, learning about your skill set, learning about your passions, and know that that is woven into this coaching relationship. But I want to also lift up the last of the phases, really about this process of letting go. How do we let go of old assumptions that no longer serve us? Sometimes we're sabotaged by our past successes. What worked 10 years ago doesn't necessarily work right now. And I think even a little bit of, how colleges have changed and how students have changed. And if we are teaching and equipping and serving students based on an assumption of who they were 10, 15 years ago, we're probably not going to serve them best. Same thing with clients. In fact, that's actually one of the challenges, not only for clients, but for ourselves. We have this base of expertise and wisdom, and we just have to ask ourselves, is that wisdom still relevant for this time, this age, this particular setting? But we need to help people unlearn and let go as much as we need to help them learn and embrace a new chapter in life and ministry. So those are 4 phases that we will embed into all of our coaching sessions. And then we talk a little bit about the what I call the 5 steps of a coaching relationship. And that first one, we call it the dance. This is, again, just wondering, are we a good fit for each other? Knowing, just like if you're hired for a position, the company wants to make sure that you're a good fit for them, and you also want to make sure, is that company a good fit for me and my lifestyle and things like that? So it's a mutual dance of understanding, is this in the best interest of both parties? And it's really important that we think clearly about that, because if we're kind of unequally yoked there where this isn't a good fit for one part or the other, it's probably it's not going to sing like we hope it might. So think about that dance. But part of that dance is also understanding each other's roles and responsibilities. One of the things that I look at very specifically is I'm looking for kind of something, and I want to see the hunger in them. If there's something they want to accomplish, or there's something they're really passionate about, are they sufficiently hungry that they'll take the next step, that they'll sacrifice their time, their energy, their resources to reach it? Because there's a lot of people with dreams that are never fulfilled because they aren't sufficiently motivated to live into them. And I think it's our job is to imagine if they're willing to match the time and energy and the sacrifice needed to reach that goal that they're yearning for. So I want you to think about the dance, and then also the roles and responsibilities. It's important that in fact, we talk about in coaching to stay in your lane, stay in the coaching lane. Don't serve as a counselor and addressing kind of past wounds and things, especially a first person like me. I'm not certified as a counselor. I would be malpractice if I tried to be a counselor and also convey myself as a coach. So just think about that. So we need to talk about that role. But part of some of those basic roles is as a client. I see the client as the expert. It's a person that's a source of wisdom, and it's my role is to draw out that wisdom, that talent, those strengths, those ideas from them. But they are the one that is the expert. They are the ones that lead the conversations. We basically start our coaching conversations. What do you want to talk about? And after we learn a little bit about that in general, what do you want to take away? What's your outcome for today's session? That's the same thing. So they're responsible for the outcome, what they're going to talk about. They're also responsible, because one of the questions we ask, what will you do? What's your next step? They're responsible for their own choices. But in addition, they're also responsible for their results. And what I see so often in coaches is that we, especially for fixers, sometimes we want their goal more than they do. And we're kind of pushing things, and we're starting to lead them rather than follow them. And we're doing more of the work than they are. That I always want you to think about that. Do we want this more than your client does? And if that's the case, there's something wrong. But that's where we want to have that dance that we've actually figured out this is the right fit. And then when we talk about the roles, this is my role, this is your role. My primary role as a coach is to ask powerful questions that draws out your wisdom, that honors your desires to move forward in these areas, and to help facilitate a conversation that's going to help you take that next step. It's not my job to do it. It's not my job to set the outcome. I'm their dialogue partner for transformation. So that has to be really clear. But that's where you'll talk about. And some of the tools we have talks about this is the role of the client, this is the role of the coach, and we'll walk through those. In fact, don't just hand it out. You actually literally need to go through each one of these. Do we have agreement here? And let's talk about it. And in the training sessions, we'll go deeper and actually do a specific example of walking through expectations as a coaching demonstration. But you do that dance, and it's clear that the roles are they clear where they want to go, and we feel like we're good partners. And then that culminates in step 2, where you actually create the deal, a written document that this is our understanding of where we want to go. This is our understanding of some basic roles and responsibilities for each one of our parties. Here's how we're going to connect, when we're going to connect, who initiates the connection, and here's what's going to happen between sessions. Here's when we're going to check in throughout our time together, and here's where we want to end up when this coaching relationship ends. So you put those essential details in a written document, and that becomes your deal. And then step 3 is really, we have a number of assessment tools here. And these will be tailored to whether you're doing leadership training, transition training, group coaching, lots of different things. There'll be different tools for different functions and different outcomes. But we also want to spend some time looking at capacities. And sometimes this blends in even a little bit with the dance. But, if we're going to move forward, this looks like it's a pretty significant time commitment. How's it going to show up on your schedule? That might be an issue. What are you going to have to say let go of, to quit doing, to make space for this to become a reality for you? So we're looking at the capacities of time, wisdom, money, all those different resources, things, partners you could collaborate with. But we want to just say what's present from the standpoint of capacities that's going to help propel this process forward. And how do we make sure we start putting those pieces into place rather than start doing these things and realize, we're missing this, we're missing that. But we want to have that already as part of our conversation. And then as any coaching conversation, this does vary a little bit. But for the most part, we create some type of roadmap that shows where we are now to where we want to be and what are some of those in-between steps along the way. And we call it a working plan, a working roadmap, realizing that as circumstances change, new insights arise, we can shape this plan. So it's not set in stone, but somehow we've kind of carved out, this is where we're heading. These are our next steps. And I like to work with a lot of clients on a longer term basis, but we often will set quarterly goals. Here's where we end up the first quarter of the year. Second quarter, we hope to be celebrating these pieces. So think about what those milestones are, the specific wins, how you might celebrate them, when you might reflect on them to learn about how you might make some course corrections, and then map out the next quarter, the next leg of the journey. But there should be some type of roadmap that's guiding the process. And sometimes it'll be a little fuzzy and it just needs to be filled in along the way. Other times it's pretty concrete right from the get-go. And then the last piece is really about the doing. It's this part about how do we coach and resource the client towards preferred futures. And this is just an active journey where we turn ideas into implementation, and we gather insights that allow them to be their best selves. But this is really the dance of the coaching conversations. So how do we make each one of those coaching conversations fruitful, impactful, moving things forward? How do we help people identify the resources they need for their next steps between coaching sessions? What exercises, reflections, resources might be helpful for them between now and the next session? But there's really this process of ongoing doing, reflection, reinvention, and experimentation that takes place in the doing portion. And just know that there generally will be some periodic check-in times when we look at, how do you feel about the progress you've made so far? How do you feel about the pace of the transformation you've seen so far? How do you feel about our relationship? Is this working? Is there good trust? Are we enjoying it? Are we still a good fit for each other? It's okay to ask those kind of questions. So you do that check-in, and then you want to think about as you get to the end, how do you help them, and maybe develop some systems along the way that you're thinking, what do you celebrate throughout this relationship? What tangible things did you deliver to your list of outcomes that we want to celebrate and make note of and list in this process? What did you learn about yourself? What's working, what's not? The habits you need to develop, the assumptions you need to let go of. To kind of catalog and capture some of those learnings and insights can be really helpful. And then I also like to leave a coaching relationship thinking about what's that next chapter look like for you? What do you want to take from this experience and use that to help shape that next chapter of your journey in that process? What support might you need with or without a person like me as a coach to help you take those next steps? And then I just want to make sure that I end well, to thank them, to celebrate their giftedness, to inspire them to take those next steps. So those are the 5 things we're going to do. We're going to mindful of that launching, listening, learning, and letting go. We're also going to do the dance, do the deal. We're going to do some developing of capacities. We're going to design that roadmap. And then we're just going to work the plan through consistent, impactful coaching conversations. That's what I hope you take out of this. I'm not going to say a lot about the tools right now. I will send you some via email and online as well. But know that we'll go much deeper with how to use those specific tools during our training. Thank you for being part of this experience, part of our next class. I can't wait to spend more time with you. Be well.